Welcome, culinary students. Today we're going to be looking at one of our cooking techniques. We're going to be looking at combination cooking. So when you're using a combination cooking technique, you're going to be using a dry and a moist heat cooking technique in your application. So today we're going to be looking at the braising technique. We're going to be braising some chicken thighs. Chicken thighs is a great protein to braise because as you slowly cook your chicken thighs, the fat starts to render off. It really starts to break down the chicken and gets nice and tender. And it's also a lot quicker than using some of your beef or pork proteins. So remember, a lot of times we only have 90 minutes in a class period, so using chicken instead of beef or pork will kind of shorten down that time a little bit for us. So in the braising technique, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to brown or sear our protein. So we're going to add a little bit of vegetable oil into our pot. So you want to make sure you use a pot and not a saute pan because we're going to be adding some liquid into our braised chicken today. So we want to make sure we have high enough sides to contain that liquid. So for our chicken, when we get ready to sear it, we want to dredge it in some flour. Dredging it in flour is going to do two things. It's going to make a nice coating on the outside. It's going to help it develop a nice brown crust. And then the flour that is going to be on the chicken is also going to act as a thickening agent for our braising liquid. And it's going to help our braising liquid kind of thicken up as we get ready to let our chicken simmer in the liquid. Just going to turn up our heat here a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of all-purpose chicken seasoning into our flour mixture. Your seasoning can be a combination of whatever type of herb and spices you would like to use. So just going to give that a little bit of a stir and then dredge our chicken thighs. So we're going to be using skin on bone-in chicken thighs today. And when you're dredging your chicken, you want to make sure that it's a very, very light coating. So you want to shake off any excess flour from your chicken thighs, because any extra flour inside of your pot is just going to burn. So we want to make sure that it's a nice, light dredge. Shake off any excess. And we can set our dredging flour to the side and we're ready to sear our chicken. So we want to look in our pot, make sure our pot is nice and hot. And then we're going to go in with our chicken thighs skin side down. We want to develop that nice dark brown color, and we're going to go skin side down first. Now, if we were making braised chicken for a family of 4 or for a larger group, we may have to sear in batches. And we want to make sure that in our pot that we're leaving some space. We don't want to overcrowd our pot. That's going to cause our chicken to steam instead of actually sear. So we want to make sure that we're not overcrowding the pot. If we need to sear our chicken in batches, we can do so. While our chicken is searing, we're going to go over some of our other ingredients. So when you are braising any type of protein, you're going to start with a vegetable base that's going to be a part of your braising liquid. Usually that's going to be a mirepoix. So we know our mirepoix is going to be 1 part carrots and celery to 2 parts onion. So I have that here. And then a little bit of finely minced garlic just as an aromatic, and then some parsley that we're going to add into our braising liquid. For your mirepoix, you want to make sure that your knife cuts are all the same. It doesn't have to be a particular knife cut. It doesn't have to be a small dice or a medium dice or a large dice, but you want to make sure that all of your dices are the same. This is going to help make sure that your mirepoix cooks evenly, that your carrots aren't cooking faster than your onions are. So you just want to make sure all your knife cuts are consistent. And then for our liquid today, when we get ready to do the moist heat part of our cooking technique today, we're going to just be using some house-made chicken stock that we're going to be using into our braising liquid. So let's check on our chicken. Want to move it around, make sure it's not sticking on the bottom of your pan. And then if you need to, you can always go in and check it. Flip one over, look at the color, looks pretty nice. So we're gonna go ahead and flip it over and let it sear on that second side. So for our herbs, you can use any combination of herbs in a braising liquid. You can use fresh thyme, rosemary, sage. Today we're just going to be using some fresh parsley. We're going to be building a pretty flavor neutral braised chicken today. Braised chicken can be served over rice, with pasta, mashed potatoes. So you can really kind of make it in any kind of variation that you want. All right, so our chicken is looking nicely brown on both sides, looking pretty good. So now we're going to transfer our chicken to a nice clean bowl. You don't want to use the same bowl that you dredge your chicken in. So we're going to move it to a clean bowl and set it aside. Now right now our chicken is not cooked all the way through. We just wanted to sear it just so we can get that nice brown color. Now in our pot we should have some oil left over, probably a little bit of bits from our chicken. That's perfectly okay. That just adds more flavor. We're now going to go in with our mirepoix. So we're going to saute our mirepoix, our carrot, celery, and onion. And we're still in that dry heat cooking method mode. So we're using the searing technique, which is a dry cooking technique. We're sauteing our mirepoix. We're still using that dry cooking technique. But when you're doing a combination cooking technique, which is what braising is, you're going to also use a moist heat cooking method as well. So once we add in our chicken stock, then we're going to be switching over to that moist heat. So our mirepoix is looking very nice. We don't want to caramelize our mirepoix. We just want it to sweat. We just want it to start looking a little translucent, help breaking down some of those sugars, but we don't want to develop any color. We're just looking to sweat them a little bit. So now that our mirepoix is looking nicely translucent, now we're going to go in and just add in a little bit of flour. So sprinkling a little flour over top of your mirepoix is going to also help as a thickening agent to help thicken up our braising liquid. Because our braising liquid is going to end up turning into our gravy for our chicken. So just a little bit of flour, maybe about 1/4 cup. And we're just going to let it nicely coat our vegetables. And now we're just going to add in our garlic. So it's very, very important that we add in our garlic towards the end of our sauteing. We don't want our garlic to burn. Garlic is very, very fragile. So we want to make sure that we add it in towards the end of our sauteing, just to make sure that we don't burn it. Give it a nice mix. We're going to season with a little bit of salt and pepper. And then we're going to take in, throw in our herbs. So with your herbs, you can tie a kitchen twine around them so that way they're easy to take out. Usually with a bundle of parsley, you can just toss it right in. They kind of usually nestle together, so we can easily fish those out later. We're going to return our chicken into our pot right on top of our vegetables. And now this is where we're going to be switching over to that moist heat cooking technique. We're going to add in enough chicken stock just to come up to the bottom of our chicken. So we don't want our chicken covered. We want it just to come about halfway. Still want to see our chicken kind of poking through the surface of our chicken stock. So now we switched over from our dry heat cooking method of searing our chicken and sauteing to adding in chicken stock and letting it come to a simmer. So now we're using that moist heat cooking technique of bringing our liquid up to a simmer, and we're going to gently let our chicken braise inside of our liquid. Now, the key thing that I want to show you about the difference between braising and stewing. Stewing is another type of combination cooking technique. But when you are stewing, it's really going to be based on not only the size of the meat that you use. When you're stewing, you usually use smaller chunks of meat that are used inside of your stew, but also the amount of liquid that you're using. When you're braising, your liquid is only going to come about halfway up your protein. So it's not going to completely submerge it. When you're stewing, your protein is going to be completely submerged into your liquid. So if we were to add more chicken stock to here and let it completely cover our chicken, we would be doing more of a stewing technique, but is also a combination cooking technique. So here at this point, you have two options with braising. You can either stovetop braise, where you'll put a lid on it and let it gently braise over the stove, or you can cover it and put it in an oven about 350 to 5 degrees and allow it to gently braise inside of the oven. Either way is perfectly acceptable. You can do a stovetop or an oven braise. And then once your chicken has reached its internal temperature, make sure that you have a thermometer. We know that chicken is supposed to be cooked to 165 degrees. Once it reaches that temperature, then we can serve our braised chicken.